Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, so tell everyone who you are and what you do, because you have a very unique job, I feel like.
Yep, sure thing. So I'm Kelly Hubbell. I am a mom of three and the founder of Sage Haus. I basically help busy moms, most of the time they're, dual income working households, to reclaim their time and energy and identity as parents, by outsourcing the mental load and creating home systems for a better division of labor. So, just the like easy, simple stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. The whole dividing division of labor is probably done in like just like a 30-minute session, I'm sure.
Yeah,
One
right?
time. I'm sure you don't have to revisit this or anything. Okay, so tell us how you got into this kind of work and like you had a recent transition from corporate. So I'm kind of curious, like, how does one make this the career? And usually there's probably a good story behind that.
Yes, absolutely. I never thought, when I was in college that I would be in a role helping parent. I didn't even think I was going to be a parent. And then now I'm a parent, now I'm helping other parents. So like, yes, I had a very unconventional path to getting here, but you are correct. I just left my corporate job about 7 weeks ago. So I'm very freshly an entrepreneur. I don't even really identify with that yet, but I worked in technology software sales for over a decade in my career. And as a part of being a working mom, I ran into a lot of the same hurdles that most working moms face, like really severe burnout, in between and after having kids, and was feeling overwhelmed. I was, getting a lot of like anxiety. I was feeling like disconnected from my partner. There was a lot of resentment building there. So basically, as a result of kind of all of that, I realized personally that I needed more help. And I finally came to this realization, like I said, after we had our second, and made a big long list of all the things I was doing to manage our household. I, created a spreadsheet. I'm a very operationally like systems person. Okay. And as you can tell, and basically added up all of the time I was spending managing our household. I took it to my husband and he said, the first thing he said was, "This looks like a job description." Exactly. That's what it is. This
Ding,
is
ding, ding.
actually,
You're right.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
correct. This is like the 22 and a half hours a week of additional labor that I am doing on top of my full-time job. So all of that to say, we ended up figuring out what would fit in our budget and how we could hire someone like a house manager or a family assistant to basically be a part of our village and support us. And so after doing that, I had a lot of mom friends, a lot of women in my network who, saw this or heard about it through people, and they were calling me up. "Hey, Kelly, what did you do? How did you hire this person? How did you find them? What did you ask them? What do they do for you?" And so finally, when I was on maternity leave this time last year, I thought, gosh, I can only take so many 45-minute calls with other moms, and I love this, but I think I want to just put this all together and make it accessible so that I can have like the biggest impact and help as many moms as possible. So that was how Sage Haus was born, was basically, my desire to help and contribute and help other moms like figure out, what do I need help with? How do I find someone to help me? And again, creating systems and then offloading and outsourcing the mental load. So
Yeah. And just as a working mom, I'm like, wow, this resonates with me so much. And of course, we're going to talk about it. But the other big question is that, like, how am I going to afford it? Right. So there's some really incredible organizations out there, Moms First, which is run by Reshma Sajani, who's been on the show a couple of times. They came out with a study the other day that said childcare now costs more than a mortgage in all 50 states. So, I mean, we are all drowning. And I'm not saying that only women are paying for the childcare. I'm just saying families have that burden
sure.
if they're working families. The other thing that you touched on that's really interesting is Wall Street Journal recently came out with an article that basically said remote work has been great for helping women get back and come back to the workplace,
Mhm.
but now they're working two jobs. So this is like and I haven't finished reading the article, so I don't know how much data and research is in there, but anecdotally, I hear this all the time too, which is I'm working full time, maybe I have hybrid or remote work, but I, I still have this whole job of taking care of the family and it's mostly falling to me. And there's other books and resources out there. So like we're not necessarily talking about a new thing, but it's like it is a huge thing that keeps being an issue for people. And so I want to talk about this house manager idea because I do think this is going beyond talking about it. So
Yeah.
let's get into sort of the details. And I'm sure you probably heard, as you said, you heard that in some of your circles as well. Um, but okay, so we're discussing the mental load. Any working parent listening knows this all too well. What are the stats or data around the mental load and how it's impacting parents, especially moms?
Sure. Yeah. Let's touch on that. Let's also touch on, we can talk about like how to fit this into your budget. You know, my goal is to help just to start thinking about like, how do we make this more affordable, attainable, and approachable than you probably are thinking, right? Like, I think a lot of people hear me talk about a house manager and before they even hear my story that we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment, renting and on one income when we decided that we needed more help, right? So like, I think that it requires a lot more context, but to your first, like the mental load, working moms, let's be honest, like working moms are really, really overwhelmed. And like you said, um, there's been this big oscillation, right? Like, you know, during COVID and the pandemic, we saw this mass exit from the workforce of women. Okay. And that was because they could not, like, I cannot provide childcare and also work in this job. And so
Impossible.
they left.
Impossible. Mm-hmm.
Now we're seeing in this Wall Street Journal article that just came out this week, 78% of women are now in the labor market, the highest that it's ever been. But they are now burning out on a whole different level because they are twice as likely to manage the household and 3 times as likely to manage this invisible labor, whether it's physical labor, emotional labor, cognitive labor, mental labor, in taking care of the home. And so I feel like what we're now seeing is, yeah, now moms are like burning out again. And what's going to happen? Are they now there? Are they going to leave? Like, sure, remote work is great. I think, you know, the mental load when we think about it is everything going on in your head when I mean, no matter what you're doing, you're working, you're with your family, you're with a friend, you're exercising. It's all of that to
Yeah.
do that's running through your head, right? Like what I say to parents often is I'm like, outsourcing or offloading a task like grocery shopping is not just the 30 minutes it takes to go to the grocery store and walk through the aisles and put stuff in your cart. It's the planning, the conceptualizing, all of like, when am I going to get to the grocery store? Do I need to check what's in the fridge and what's in the pantry? That's the mental load that goes into that one task of going to get groceries. And so I think like a part of this is we are not even able to like feel present in what we're doing because we're running through our to-do list constantly in our minds. And so I think it's more about like, how do we start to relieve ourselves from the mental load by offloading, by outsourcing, by having better systems set up so that you know when things are going to happen in your home so that you can expect to make them happen. As it relates to budgeting for this, I think that's another like huge topic. And I'm certainly, you know, the first person to admit that, you know, I feel privileged just because I am in a dual income working household where, you know, we're able to make that decision. Like we both really want to work and we both really love our jobs. And like, so something's got to give here. And my hypothesis is that even if you have two highly effective people, partners who want to make it work and they want to divide the labor, there aren't enough hours in the day to do it. And so like that on top of the majority of us, 70% of millennials and Gen Zers are living an hour or more away from their family and their support systems.
Yeah.
So we need to find our village and like hire people to help us in these seasons of life that are just really, really demanding.
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear this because sometimes I'm like, I'm breaking. I'm reaching a breaking point, like it's too much. And to your point, I feel like my husband and I are like, we are both giving it 120% all the time.
Yes.
And we're still just tired all the time. So, okay, let's jump into the tangible parts of this.
Mhm.
How how do I outsource? What does it look like? How do I create the system? How do I afford it? Like, what are some examples? Like, tell me the action plan now.
Yeah. So action plan is, I think the first step, this is one thing I coach parents on in my small group cohorts, is the first step is making the invisible visible. So like, what are you doing to, kind of like I said, like I made that big long list. What are you doing today? Or what are even the things that are like falling off the plate, but you want, that are like part of the care standard of care for your family? So I actually, if you, on my website, mysagehaus.com, I have a free quiz. It takes 2 minutes. It's like 8 questions. And by answering the 8 questions to this quiz, it shows you a dashboard of all of the things that you're doing, of all the time you're spending, what you're spending time on, how much time you're spending per week managing your household today. And then it gives you this big, huge, long task list of all the things that's probably happening in your home. And I think step one, go over that checklist with your partner. Like, just get it out in the open. Like, hey, kind of like I did. Hey, here's all the things that need to take place in our home in order to keep everyone safe, healthy, and thriving. And then I think it's like, start small. Just pick 5 things from that list. What are 5 things that we could offload and outsource that would like really add value for our family? And so then translating that to like, what's our budget? How do we then, okay, so your budget is 4 hours a week. Literally, I met with a mom this week who was like, I need a 4 hour a week house manager. Kelly, is that a thing? I'm like, yeah, that's a
Is
thing.
it?
Yes, there are so many people. I mean, I recruit for parents who want to find a meal prep chef, a house manager. There are so many people in the care economy who want part-time jobs, who want students, who want 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week of any kind, like, oh, an amazing job like this, helping a family. So it's a thing. So figuring out what your budget is. And then this is what I help families with, which is like going from there to what's your job description? Where do you post that job? What kind of interview questions do you ask that person? And then what's most important and what people forget is onboarding that person into your home. So like, in order for everyone to feel really successful about that relationship, you've got to have very explicit roles and responsibilities. And part of that is like those home systems we talked about. Like, once you define your home systems, then you can basically onboard someone by saying, here's our home systems. Here's how we do things in our home. Here's the days we wash our laundry. Here's how we like such and such done. Here's trash day, so that everyone feels successful. So those are kind of like the steps to start thinking through.
Do you have templates for people to put together like their house plan? Like, actually, I'm about to bring on an au pair, so this is something that I've been thinking a lot about. So I'm like,
Mhm.
and a lot of people in the community, or it's through a program, and so they will tell you like communication is key, documenting kind of your house rules. So this is really interesting to me because like I am realizing if I do this well and I document things really well, it's like I could slot in other people to help. And anyway,
Mhm.
so do you
Yes.
have for people who are not getting like what I'm getting, where I'm going through a program where they're like showing me how to, are you can people go on your website and find some templates of how to create sort of their house documents?
Yeah, so those templates for like hiring someone is a part of my digital course. So I have a digital course. It's called How to Hire a House Manager. And it literally includes all of those things that you mentioned. However, my cohort is the program that I work with. I do small group cohorts, and that's where we like dive deep into like the home systems.
Mm.
Feeding the family, laundry, decluttering, like routines, weekly, monthly, seasonal chores, all that stuff. That's kind of like what you're talking about. That's what we do in my small group cohort.
Okay, so part of hiring a house, first it's thinking about what invisible labor do you do, make it visible, write it out. Then kind of deciding, okay, the top priority is we really need a house manager to help us with mealtime. Mealtime is just such a time suck for us, or something like that. Or we really need someone who can help with commuting kids to afternoon activities. Whatever you like, you figure out what the top priorities are. And then from there you decide, okay, what kind of resource you need to hire. Is it you're talking about a house manager? Is a house manager a person who would like go out and hire those for you, or what is a house manager?
So a house manager to me, some people call them a family assistant. A house manager to me is someone that you hire on typically an hourly basis. Ours has been with us for 2.5 years and is now on a salary because she has a set amount of hours that she works every week and she's reliable and we trust her and so on. But it's someone who can basically come in and I call her my clone. I'm like, she's my clone. She does everything that I could do. And I think that's one of the things that in the past, we've had these very rigid roles and responsibilities, like a nanny only takes care of my kid, only does their laundry, only prepares food, mac and cheese, right? Or we have a house cleaner and it's like they only, and to be fair, like we have house cleaners who come and deep clean, but our house manager will like tidy up, wipe counters, like do light cleaning in between deep cleaning. So like housekeepers, that's a role. And then it's like pet sit, and then it's like a dog sitter, a pet sitter. It's like, why are we dividing all these things up? Like I do all these things in my house. So to me, a house manager is like me. It's just, she's me. And she sees dirty socks on the floor and she puts them in the laundry bin. She goes and runs around and fills up our car with gas and, notices that we need something or like sees that we've got a pile of Amazon returns and she takes those in, like she's just in everything. She's like a unicorn.
So how, I guess, salary, I mean, yours is on a salary, but most of the time you're hiring an hourly person. What should people expect? Like this sounds great. Sounds like to your point, it's
Mhm.
like having two of you, right? Um, let's say you've gone through the work of you've created the job description, you know you need a house manager who can basically kind of help with all the things. You have a list that's a little higher up of the priorities. What is the going hourly rate? I'm sure this differs in every place,
Mhm.
but like if you could just give some money information so people can start thinking like, is this possible? Like if I only have, an extra $300 a month or $500 a month or
Huh?
$1,000 a month, is this possible for the average person?
But I would say yes. So I think it is. I think that I'll give you an hourly range because I work with families like all over, the US. And I've seen a range from $20 an hour to $45 an hour. So honestly, that's a really, really big range. But again, like I think it's about figuring out what fits into your budget and also being creative about it. So like, for example, like if you already have cleaners, 80% of dual income working parents already have cleaners. Can you pay your cleaners an extra hour to fold like 3 big baskets of laundry for you? Like that's probably worth an hour of their time. And it's better than like we've got 2 or 3 people folding laundry versus one of you. Um, I think you can get really creative. Like I'm seeing, it's so funny. We're in the middle of summer, right? I see all of these kids in the neighborhood posting up their signs like, I want to walk your dog. I want to babysit for you. Or like even like a mother's helper. Like now, don't get me wrong. I'm all about, part of the reason we've hired a house manager and more help in our home is because I want to like hang out with my kids and feel present with them between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. when they go to bed with like, and I don't want to be scrubbing pots and pans. So I love spending time with my kids. I want to feel more present, but like, if you've got house projects to work on that you don't seem like you can get to, but there's a mother's helper down the street and she just wants to make like whatever minimum wage is, great. That's a super like cost effective, you know, um, option. So I think it's like getting creative, doing swaps with other parents. Like I think we need to be doing more of that again. We're post-COVID times. Find friends that also want to go out on a date night and do like, do swaps. So I think there's a lot of ways to get creative about it.
So tell me what has happened for the clients who have come to you and said, I need help outsourcing the mental load. You give them the tools to do it. We've talked about some of those here today, hiring a house manager. I think getting creative. I mean, I think of outsourcing mental load could be a house manager, but it could also be like a meal prep program
Yes.
where the meals come to you basically done. Having the house cleaner, obviously getting your groceries delivered. Like there's so many things now that you could do outside of a house manager if that's not your thing. Anyway, for the people who have done this stuff, what are some of the results that you hear from them about after they've done this? How do they feel, before and after? What does it look like?
Mostly people are just can't even believe how much they were doing and how much they had on their plate, because once they're able to take a breath, they're like, wow, this is really life-changing and it's really transformative. Like I've heard from a lot of, professionals, like I work with a lot of executives who tell me like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much mental load I was carrying. I feel like a weight has lifted, I mean, it's a heavy cape to carry. The supermom cape is heavy. And I feel like once you can really take it off, it is, it's life-changing. Like I think they've also figured out like they're reclaiming their time for themselves, and they're like able to really get back to what lights them up and fills their cup. They have an extra hour in the day to like move their body or read a book or do whatever like really fills them up. And then I've also seen just a very positive impact on partnerships. Like I think that, for me and my partner, like we've seen a huge change and others have seen a huge change, because instead of pushing things onto each other's plates, we're just like, we've taken things off of both of our plates and we've just like pulled out a new plate. We're like, here's another person at the table who can help us. And I think that really takes away a lot of the scorekeeping, a lot of the resentment, a lot of that I think just continues to pile up on us as we are juggling careers and kids and extracurriculars and all these other things that we want to do. So
Yeah, no, I love it. I think the biggest parts or the biggest barriers I think people have to hiring a house manager or doing some of these things, especially the house manager, if you're hiring a person, is how do I make a job description? What do I pay them? What's the employment contract? Like these are all the questions I see people asking. Obviously, you have a method that helps with all of that, which is really, really cool that you are offering kind of this like house manager in a box type system. People want to know where to post. And then the part that I think really makes the difference with success of this is the onboarding, right? Like, how are you going to have a good experience with this? Now, I will slowly report back as I have to onboard a new person who I'm trying to clone in that way, but which is interesting just because we kind of briefly talked about it, and I actually think we could have a whole episode about how to onboard someone with your house systems. But
yep.
just telling people take time to document everything that you do in your house is really interesting. Like that's not something I necessarily thought of until I was going through a program like this, and they like give you templates. They tell you to do this stuff. For
Well,
the
it's like
people,
running your home like a business,
yeah,
Lauren, like I think we are highly educated, career-oriented people who are like managing people and processes and operations. And can we just, if we put 5% of that toward our home, like the way that we're running our home, like it's kind of a no-brainer. It really works.
yeah. Yeah, I think in bonus points, if you can get your partner really involved in that too. So you're not the true CEO, you can be a co-CEO in
Yep.
that way. Okay, Kelly, any final thoughts as we get ready to wrap up about what people should know when it comes to offloading the mental load?
I think it's just, I mean, I think I mentioned this, but like I said, it's not just about like reclaiming an hour a day. What would you do if you had an hour a day? It's like, it's reclaiming thought in your brain and the mental space. Like you don't really know how much you're holding until you start to offload it. And so I think that can be really powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like when people like want to try to solve burnout with a bubble bath or whatever. And we had an author, Pooja, I can't remember her last name, and I would butcher it anyways. She wrote a book called Real Self-Care, and in it, it's about the systems that help you overcome burnout or prevent burnout. It's not about the one-time facial or the one-time workout class. And I think what you're talking about, it, to each their own if this is something you're interested in, but it does force you to say, what are the systems that I have in place? Are they setting me up for success, or are they just setting me up to just be like burning the candle from both ends? And I completely agree. Working women have, it's very tough for us. And until we get some support from like higher ups and federal level, like this is something I feel like that all falls to moms. It just does. And that's like why there's incredible women who are trying to change that. But I'm just saying, like, at the moment, this is what we have, right?
Yep, this is what we have, and it's okay to find solutions. Like, you know, I think we it would be lovely if we lived in utopia land, but like we're not there yet. And that's okay. We're not there yet, but like in the meantime, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be timid about going to find it and say like this is what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Kelly, remind people where they can find you, follow up with you. It's called the Sage House Method, which we'll put all this stuff in the show notes, but tell them one more time.
Yes. So I mostly hang out on Instagram at my Sage Haus, Haus. House is spelled the cool way, house. I'm also, let's see, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me Kelly Hubbell or Sage Haus on LinkedIn. My website is mysagehaus.com. That's where you can take the quiz. I also have a free 5-day program that I should mention that I just launched in May. So on my Instagram, there's a link in my bio. You can go take my free 5-day program and start there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving everyone a starting place, and to everyone who's been, thinking, shouldn't I, what are the options for me? I think you've given them a lot of good advice. So thank you.
Thanks.